Hi there, thanks for stopping by. Today's video is another special request and I'm going to show you how to make starfish using our seashell loom set. So let's get started. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a starfish using our seashell loom set. I am using loom number 5 and I'm starting with the end of the thread through the central hole. You can tape this if you wish, I'm just going to hold it. And so what you need to do is warp up so that you skip different spokes. So we're going to go from 1, so saying 1 is at the top, over to 13. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Nearly a good guess. And then to 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then over to 17, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then you can just about see where this is going. I'm skipping 3 and then back up to the top. And so there's a nice little star shape. And now wrap in the same place over and over again to the thickness that you want. And with all of the looms, just try to remember not to wrap too tightly, because if you do that you'll have difficulty getting your thread off. Now I'm going to work this quite thick. I said I have quite a few threads here. That's about all that will fit. I've completely lost track and stopped counting, but that's fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the thread from the ball. I'm going to cut quite a length and I'm going to thread a needle. So now that my needle is threaded, I'm going to come up, go underneath one of the groups of threads, and then I'm simply going to wrap. Now I don't want to wrap too tightly, but I do want to try to get a completely as even as possible with my wraps. So where they cross over, you want to give a little bit more space, and then obviously when they start spreading out you want to grab them in. So at the top, I'm then going to take my needle through underneath those wraps that are around the spokes, and then I can come up at the next spoke that I want to fill. So you can come across if you wish. And so for instance, do this one, and then when you come down you'll come across and you will fill that space. So let's do it this way, just so you can see what I mean. So I'm filling up that gap in the middle. and then I'm just going to wrap this leg, and I'm going to continue for each of the legs, and I'll cross over as I sort of see fit to fill the center area. And so there's our little long-legged starfish. Just going to pop off the loops, and there's our completed little starfish. Now when stitching this into place, the first thing I do is remove that first tail so this doesn't get in my way. You can decide which side you like better, of course. And then I'm just going to stitch this with the same thread at the center. Now at this point, you can do any tidying up at the center that you might want to do. So you may want to do like a cross stitch. Just to build it up a little bit at the center. So now what to do with the little loops. You could, of course, just stitch them in so that they're splay out. Or you can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip the loop, one side of the loop, quite near to where I've finished wrapping. So then I have a long length. And then I'm going to take my needle. You can use a very thick needle if you wish and see if you can get more than one thread in at the same time. But one at a time will usually work. And I've just threaded the end and I'm just going to pull it through. And I'm going to do that with each of these. So of course this is a little bit more time consuming and not very pretty on film, but it does help to get a really nice effect. And of course if you're going to place shells over the top of one or two of the legs, you don't need to do all of them in this way. Or you could just stitch and then wrap those last ones and make longer legs. And of course you can place these ends so that the leg is up if you wish as well. So you can add a little bit more sort of oomph to that. Now at the back, what I would then do is take a little bit of a stitch just either side of the wrap here so that I can go ahead and secure the ones at the back. And if you're using a linen, not a felt as I'm doing, you can also pull up a little bit of the fabric at the back only, just to secure those ends under. So in the same way as if you were couching down a cord or thread, you know, a cord or a braid, you would sink the ends into the fabric. So that's the first way in which you can make a little starfish. On this example, this is exactly what I've done. I've gone ahead and I've just sunk the ends in through the fabric. On this example, however, I've just cut the ends, so you can see they go a little bit fluffy there, but I haven't really worried about it. I've just made sure that I've used the same color to just make sure that those legs are tacked down and left it as it is. For this starfish, I'm going to work a little bit differently. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work reverse back stitch. So I've warped up in the same way and I've gone around the spokes 4 times, sorry. You can do as many as you wish. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come under and then I'm going to come back around to the next one. And back around to the next one. And I'm going to keep doing this. I've now worked the reverse back stitch and I've worked it for 4 rows. In the little instruction books it says 2 to 3. You can really do however you want. But now we're going to switch out and work rounding back stitches. Okay, so rounding back stitches is where we work in the opposite direction so that we get a ridge at the top. So I'm going under the spokes and back around the same spoke. And I will carry on and work these as far as I can. So there's a nice little unusual shape. I'm going to take my needle through the spoke to the center. Okay. Now I'm going to go back under the reverse back stitch stitches, but I just want it anchored there. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to pull in to the center the longer sides. So it pulls in like so. And then I'm going to take the needle and thread back. Remember, you're working only on the top. Don't go through that central hole down to the back of the shape. And again, I'm going to come over, but I'm underneath the top stitches and pull in. And that's what's giving us that nice little star shape. And then again, back under. You can, if you can get your needle to feel some of those threads at the center so that you're sort of splitting them so that it's secured. And then back under again. If you want, you can go straight through to the next section, depending on how confident you feel about that. Though of course if you're turning like I'm about to do, you want to come up and then go back down. And that's the shape. Now I'm going to take that through this time right the way through so that it's out of the way and you can see the shape that I've actually created. Now I'm going to pop that off of the loom. Snip off those, well, I'll snip off the first tail. And there is the shape. Now, for this particular one, you can, if you wish, just trim off as before when you stitch down, but you can simply tuck all of the ends under. So I'm going to use this thread and I'm just going to grab those loops and secure them to the back only. And I like doing this because I think it adds a little bit of extra dimension to the shape because these are folded to the back. But But of course you want to make sure that they're not interfering with the shape that you created. So you can just sort of check at the front. And then when you stitch that down, you can tuck in any excess loops that may be showing. And if you work further out or you don't pull in those stitches too tight, you will also get different shapes on that starfish. And this can be further embellished. So for instance, this one, I've embellished it with extra French knots to give it extra texture, but that's how that one has been created. And so there you have it, 2 different ways to make a starfish using the seashell loom set. I'll leave a link in the description box below to the set. In the meantime, do please click like, hit subscribe, click the notifications bell, leave me a comment, you know, all that fun stuff. And until the next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.